What's up and welcome to the Active Amputee podcast. Everything people with a limb difference need to live an active and exciting lifestyle. I'm Björn Eser, the founder of and shaker and maker behind the Active Amputee. And today you're listening to episode number 40. Yes, number 40 already. It's one of the episodes which is actually not recorded via Zoom or here in my office, but out on the road. And for this first Out on the Road show, I have the pleasure of talking with Jimmy Capra from Click Medical. He's one of the two co-founders and the current Chief Executive Officer. Hi, Jimmy. Welcome. Yeah, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Jimmy from the US. Jimmy just arrived yesterday here in Germany. We are currently sitting in Duderstadt, where they headquarter from Otto Bockes, and we actually met for the first time. But Jimmy is from Click Medical, and Click Medical and the Active Amputee have been in a cooperation for the last a bit more than a year. Jimmy, welcome to Duderstadt.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great. It's really a pleasure. Could you just say a few words about yourself, Jenny, your background, and what brought you here before we then dive into today's topic, which is adjustability, especially socket adjustability?
Sure. So I've spent a long part of my career, most of my career, in business for myself, really kind of changing the way that various industries work. And I know that's maybe a grand thing to say, but I even started as a young kid just mowing lawns for people. But I didn't just mow a few lawns. I mowed many lawns and figured out the efficient ways to find customers, the efficient ways to keep customers. It was really a place where I broke a lot of ground in innovating the way that kind of business could work. And I kept doing that throughout the various jobs that I had. And I ended up working for BOA Technology at the very early stages of that company. And we had a lot of new things to innovate and to find ways to bring the benefits of just, dialing something in to various types of footwear, various types of products. Over time, I realized, wow, this is a really great technology that should be used for amputees and really for those with any kind of limb difference or needing of support with orthotics as well. And that's when I met our co-founder, Joe Mahon, who had really figured out a way to make adjustability work with a prosthesis. And we thought, this is pretty interesting. We should try to do it together.
Cool.
So we've spent 7 years now working to build Click Medical and all of the things that are necessary to make it work.
Yeah, great. I mean, just for those podcast listeners who probably listened today to the first show, Joe has been on this show a couple of months ago, so you might want to look up some of the previous podcasts where Joe actually talks about how skipping a day at work and going snowboarding with his then girlfriend, wife, and seeing how she adjusted her snowboarding boots actually led to the development of adjustable sockets. So you might want to check that out. Jimmy, great. So you come from BOA's, which actually was, as you said, into footwear, cycling, snow, sports shoes, everyday running shoes, adjustable, different lacing systems through a dial. How did you then move that together with Joe into something which is, for us amputees, so important, adjustable sockets?
It's an interesting story because I had evolved over time at BOA, moving kind of from category to category to develop the very early stages of the use of the technology in different categories of business. So I started with snowboard boots, and then I developed golf shoes, and then cycling shoes. And then we started looking at the big volumes that could be created and the benefits to workers in work shoes that needed to be taken off very quickly for a welder or something that needed to fit really well for someone working high in a building. During those years as I was building those other kinds of products, we kept getting phone calls from medical groups who said, hey, we'd like to use this technology to make an orthosis fit better. And then it really was Joe who called me one day and said, I have an idea for how to make a prosthesis fit really well. And I thought, okay, sure, that's probably not going to work because you're just a prosthetist, not a company. I was used to working with big companies. But he had a good idea. And I thought, let's see what we can do. So Joe actually became a customer of mine when I was at BOA. And he developed this over time. And then a little while later, after meeting Joe many times and seeing the potential, we thought we could really make this work. And Joe needed some help. He's a prosthetist and an inventor. I'm really more of a business developer and someone who can find the ways to do things in brand new ways. So Joe and I met up together, and that's when we started Click Medical. And we've spent now all of our time at Click Medical focusing on just this one equation, which is how to make orthosis and prostheses fit better for patients.
And me, as someone who is a user of your product, of the original BOA product, BOA adapted product, and as someone who has been struggling on the one hand with a good in terms of tight, but as well comfortable fit of a socket, but also someone who really appreciates the fact that a well-fitting socket, and a socket which can be adapted to my daily needs, daily interests, to my daily mood, I think it's, for me, always an enabling device. The better I can control the fit of my socket, the more I can say, well, here I push the limits a bit more, here I try something where I'm not too much worried about comfort, but about a snug fit, a precise placement of the foot or the knee. Or where I say, well, today I'm more of the couch potato type of person, I want to sit comfortable but still not take off my leg. I'm really benefiting from these. And I just heard you have been working on something new, an overhaul is coming on the market. Can you tell us a bit more about the new products?
Sure. Well, it was really born out of what you just mentioned, which was that it's not just about moving something in one direction. It's about moving things in the direction that you might need today, which might be different than what you need tomorrow, which might even be different than what you needed last hour. And it can depend so much on so many variables. So our goal is to make an adjustable device that can meet those needs of your changing body and your changing daily activities, including resting, right? Why have a really tight-fitting device when you're sitting at your desk? So we thought, let's go ahead and build something that will really enable us to do this adjustability really well, both in creating tension or compressing, but as well as expanding. So what we are going to be offering starting in a couple of months is the new reel technology that we built, the Click Reel. And the Click Reel was designed specifically to be used on a prosthesis. The technology we used before was great technology. It was just designed to be used 5 times a year on a snowboard boot, for example. But we knew that our users needed to use these reels every single day. And so we developed it to be stronger. We developed it to be more low profile. And we developed it to turn both forwards and backwards to be able to create or release tension within a prosthesis.
Probably just for the people who haven't seen the original BOA or haven't experienced that, it was nice in ways that you could gradually click by click tighten something. But if you then thought, well, actually, I just want to loosen it a bit, you had to unlock it. Basically, you had to go back to zero. So it was unraveling. And then you start from anew again. And you just now say, okay, now we have something where we do in minimal increments. We can go tightening it a bit. We can say, oh, no, that was a bit too much, and can go back without completely loosening it again.
That's exactly right. It's amazing how millimeter by millimeter really makes a difference. And so if you need to tighten millimeter by millimeter, you have that capability. But if you want to loosen millimeter by millimeter, you also have that capability. And I think that becomes really useful, especially when you, say, sit down at your desk and maybe 1 or 2 clicks to release tension and become more comfortable. Maybe a few minutes later you do one or two more. And that is just such a nice way to release that overall tension or the compression that may be uncomfortable, but then to be able to wind it right back up again without having to start over.
Yeah. And I think also from my own experience, I mean, I'm someone who's, suffer sounds like I'm suffering every day. It's probably the wrong word, but I have to deal with quite a lot of volume fluctuation in the residual limb throughout the day. And we're talking within just a short period of time. So I sometimes have really problems getting into the prosthesis in the morning, and when I'm active by noon, it might as well fall off. And I noticed for myself that there's a temptation to just increase the tension, and you can increase the living daylight out of your residual limb. And it feels good because you have the feeling, okay, good. But every once in a while, the limb needs room to expand again and then fit again. And so this possibility of releasing it a bit when you sit, when you're resting, just to make sure you're not just continue tightening, because it's the temptation is there to say, I want a good fit, and I give it some more. So I see mileage in that one.
For humans, more tends to be better, at least in our perception.
Yeah, perception, I think, is the word we're looking.
But yeah, I think we've had some really interesting research come back around this topic, which really studied the limb health when prosthesis user is able to reduce that tension and create room within their socket. And what they found is that what that does is releasing that compression allows for better circulation, which then fills those tissues back up with good fluids that are supposed to be there. And then when you compress it again, some of those move out. But if you can keep that movement flowing throughout the day, the overall limb health improves quite a bit. So being able to back off tension, I think, has become just as important as being able to create it.
Yeah, great. That is one where I say I see the added value. I think I'm excited of hopefully being able to test it soon. That is one of the new devices, or that's one of the devices where you say we put a new spin, we put new ideas, we put new research into it. What are the other two which are coming on the market within the next 4 to 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. So we have really 3 main product lines that are going to be using this new reel. The Revo Fit is the product that we've used for many years to create that fit characteristics within sockets. Great product. We haven't changed a lot about it except for the reel, which is now able to have these features that we've just been talking about. That's a great solution for a definitive device that's been built specifically to have adjustability within it. But so many people have existing sockets, or even an existing socket that has a problem fit. We thought, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we could add adjustability to a socket after it's been fabricated? Now, it's not perfect and it's not as elegant, but boy, even just having the ability to adjust something, even if it's only for a matter of months, as you get used to adjustability, as you try out the concept to see if it works well for you, it's a fantastic way to be able to give it a try. So that's the Revo Surface kit. And the Revo Surface can be added to the surface
The name
of a
gives it
prosthesis.
away, yeah.
Same general concepts of creating or releasing tension, just added to the surface of a device after it's been built.
While with the original, with the other one, you would, in the process of creating it, you would laminate the structure into the socket.
Into the subsurface or the walls of the socket.
Okay,
so it's very permanent.
Yeah.
Now you can also use that Revo Surface to check how the adjustability will work before you build a final socket. So like a check socket or a preparatory socket works great to use the Revo Surface to start playing with this. See where you might want the reel to be located. See which parts of the socket you might like having adjust.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic way to test things out
Yeah.
before you commit for 2 to 3 to 5 years of wearing a device.
Yeah. And I mean, I know through this podcast and through the blog, I have pleasure and really this rewarding experience of chatting with quite a lot of really interesting, inspiring, amazing amputees all over the world. And very often people who think outside the box. people from the industry, amputees or people with limb loss themselves, researchers. And I know that often people use their old sockets, the ones where they say, well, for my day-to-day life, they're not that good anymore. But where they say, well, I need a cycling socket, I need a climbing socket, I need one for snowshoeing. And actually it needs to be special in a way that I cut away the supporting part, or I cut away something here which normally carries your weight or so. And where they then say, this is an old one, this is my playing around socket, and this is where I need to make sure, even if I ride 100 kilometers on my bike, the thing still fits. I see lots of potential where people say, well, if I have something like the Surface kit, I take an old socket, I take some old tubes and adapters and build something especially for kayaking or for climbing or for canyoning or something which is not for my day-to-day life.
Right.
But with specialized for whatever, my special pirate leg.
I love the idea, especially these prosthetic devices are so expensive. And they're regulated as to when you can get them, right? So to be able to keep an older prosthesis that may not fit well anymore and turn it into a prosthesis that has a special adaptation or that now can fit better because you're able to adjust it can be totally game-changing. And now all of a sudden you have an opportunity to create the quiver of legs that you might want to have on hand. Even to just take a shower safely.
Yeah.
Or whether it's like you riding a bicycle or whatever it may be, it really opens up a world of opportunity.
Yeah. I just spoke with an amputee from South Africa the other day, and actually it's the article on the blog last week, when he says, yeah, now for his cycling, he's really looking for something mechanic and something that doesn't have to be fancy, and actually a foot that doesn't need to have a nice rolling gait rhythm, but works fine on the pedals in his cycling shoes. But where he also said, he had to learn quite a lot in terms of, yes, let's get this whole leg cast molded while he's in a sitting position on a bike, because it's a bit of a different way you mold it around your muscles. And where he then said, and while having it molded in a different way, then still having the possibility of saying, well, now I want something which actually between these two muscles adds additional tension,
right.
Or which when I've been riding through, I mean, he's in South Africa, quite hot, lots of sweating, lots of losing liquid during the day, where he says, after a couple of hours, you just have to keep on tightening. There's no other way. And I think for him and for others, this opens up a new world, because I don't know many people who can invest another 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 for a socket which is only for my spare time bicycling or climbing or
right.
Yeah.
And to add to that question or that statement, we've had many patients that they have terrible cramping issues. And they cramp because their muscles start to perfuse with blood during their activities, and they expand, and then there's no room. So to be able to expand a socket and allow for that muscle to really get filled up with blood and to be doing its job makes a huge difference for people.
So now we gave away the original. We gave away now the Surface kit. What's number 3?
Number 3 is the Revo Lock kits. The Revo Lock is basically the same concepts, but built specifically to suspend the limb in the socket. So many people struggle to either stay suspended in their socket, or more importantly, they struggle to get into their socket. So this is basically a dial-controlled lanyard system.
Okay.
There's many lanyards out there on the market, but they suffer from a few things. One is that you're pulling on something in a direction that isn't the same direction as what you're pulling your leg into. So it can be very efficient and hard for patients, especially if they have flexibility or strength issues. Secondarily, once you've done that, you have this big cord to put somewhere, and it can be very difficult to find a place to put it. So we said, let's use the power of the reel, which really allows you to have a 7-to-1 mechanical advantage to pull the limb into place. And then it locks it there so that over time you have the opportunity to then be really secure in your socket. We've developed this cool little system we call the slider, which locks it as well, as sort of an additional lock. You still can adjust the dial, which allows for that positioning, proper positioning or release of tension while seated, but knowing that you're fully locked in and you can't come out of the device. Yeah. we think it's going to be a pretty exciting product for people.
That is one I actually want to try. I must admit, while I can walk for miles and miles, 25 kilometers a day, I wouldn't say no problem, but possible even with luggage. But as soon as I do something where I'm not constantly putting weight on my prosthesis, like climbing, cycling, just doing a couple pull-ups or something, I'm basically out of the prosthesis. Which obviously has kind of this confidence issues. You don't want to get on a bike when you think, oh, when I'm in the middle of the rush hour, there goes my vacuum and gone it is, even if it doesn't fall off, but you have the feeling it's then like a loose limb just flopping around, and having something which keeps it in place. And I think the underlying thinking is similar to the pin system, but more advanced, more nuanced, and not as rigid as the pin. Is that true?
It's exactly right. There's a couple of main differences. The real problem for a lot of people with the pin is actually locating the pin in the exact spot it needs to be. You have to put the liner on just right, and then you have to put your leg in just right. Otherwise, the pin doesn't find the pin hole. It can be very frustrating for many users. The Revo Lock, on the other hand, you attach a cord to the liner, and then you dial it in. It's pulling it into the exact right position every time. That's its only option. So
Yeah.
it really helps you don it and make that easier for the user. But having the confidence that your leg will stay on, that's a big deal. I mean, I can't imagine walking around and thinking my leg might fall off, because that's a for sure fall on your face.
Yeah, and very often, I mean, when I say fall off, it's not that it basically falls off without warning, but just as one example where there's no risk involved or nothing, I like to ride my kick scooter around town. I mean, it's like a kid's kick scooter, just a bit bigger, and it's nice because you can do it with your kids, and it's just an easy way to get to the shop. But for me, because you have quite a forceful movement to propel you forward, but it's not that with each step, so to speak, you put additional weight on the socket and through your residual limb. So while normally walking, even walking quickly, with every step I push myself back into a prosthesis. So there is not that issue of, well, I'm basically wedged in there.
Right.
But with the other one, I have these rather long strides without putting weight on it. So after 15, 20 of them, I notice how it wiggles a bit loose. And that gives me the warning, okay, now I need to walk for 10, 15 meters again, then I can ride again. And I know many others who have similar issues.
Interesting.
And it's sometimes really just as goofing around with your kids, and you suddenly think, no, actually, just been on the trampoline, 5 jumps, and you think, oh no, actually, I have to get off. Or being on the bike, ride a bit, and thinking, it's not that it falls off, but it starts getting loose. And then you have this, I should get off. Oh no, I wait until I see the next red light, and then I get off. And it's unnecessary worries.
Well, it takes you away from
Yeah.
being present.
Yeah.
Right? And presence is everything, especially when you're trying to connect with your loved ones. Being present is important. So, hopefully we can help with that too.
I'm gonna be one of those who want to try it. But just for me to get it, I mean, I must admit, I've seen them earlier now, kind of not yet in action, but having seen them and could play around with them. Can that be used for below-knee amputees? I mean, many below-knee amputees use the pin system. Above-knee amputees, I think it's much less common and much more issues where people say it's okay-ish, but not yet there. With your system, below-knee, above-knee, upper limbs, any limitations or...
No, really can be used on any amputation level.
Cool.
And really just depending on, it does rely on a locking liner.
Yeah,
but those are very flexible for
Yeah.
most limb shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
So it really can be used pretty much anywhere.
Cool, yeah. I mean, companies, big and small, there's always a thing, okay, as you said earlier, you need the people, you need the creative thinker, you need the people with the expertise on the issue. But then obviously with amputees themselves become more and more confident, more and more demanding things. I'm not saying I'm not the patient. I don't want to be at the receiving end of someone else's research and development or business ideas. In how far do you draw on feedback, requests, demands, lessons learned from the wider amputee community, limb loss community, limb difference community, however we want to call us?
Oh, it's so important. you know, most products in the world are designed behind a desk, right? Even if they're for activity. And so, and I'm not an amputee. I can guess what these things will look like, but I haven't worn a prosthesis. I don't know. To get the feedback from users, especially across the wide range of users that there are, whether that's low activity or high activity, whether that's above the knee or below the knee. I mean, there's so many different flavors of this condition, this scenario, that it's so important to have feedback from users. There's also a lot of personal choice, right? I mean, if you look at your belt, there's not just one hole. There's 6 or 8 or 10, right? It all depends on the time, how much, how close are we to Christmas?
Yes.
How far after Christmas are we?
Second turkey belt.
And so we really want to provide the technology that enables a user to adjust their device to their life. And we need to know how that works for them. And those new ideas and those feedback loops can help us continue on our quest to make new and better and even more functional products.
Yeah. And looking back at your development, your overhaul, you're working on the experiences you had over the last 6-7 years, the feedback, but also seeing probably different ideas people have on what they could do if there would be more control over quick time adjustment, more nuanced adjustment. What were some of the main challenges you were facing working on these new devices? And I don't mean in marketing and in convincing others to use them, but in the development phase to say we have a product that is great.
Believe it or not, it's really hard to make reels. You'd think that'd be very simple. There's a dial, there's a spool, there's some lace, right? It doesn't sound that hard. Turns out it's very hard. We're putting tremendous loads into a very small package. And in so doing, you have to have engineering that is very robust, but not too robust, right? So that it's not too big, right? Because everyone wants things to be as small as possible for good reason. Finding the little secrets that make a reel strong enough but small enough is really hard. On top of that, there's the user interface. Having a dial do what you want it to do when you think it should do it is a lot harder than you'd think. And then there's the challenge of, it sounds very easy to make something go forwards and backwards. Boy, are there a lot of complications there. So between those sort of 3 main areas of basically conflict, being small is in conflict with being strong. Having both directions is in conflict with simplicity. Those are the challenges that we've had to really work on in order to find the right product and the right solutions. And, it won't be right for everybody. That's sort of the nature of the game. But again, if we can get feedback over time, if we can learn from how users are experiencing the product, boy, it helps us narrow down what some of those features that are really important versus some of the features that may not be as important.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the value can come from in feedback.
Yeah, my main work is an international development corporation. And we have this when it's about monitoring evaluation or setting expectations in the beginning. There used to be this really linear thinking where you think, well, even if it's social change, you would say, well, 3 years down the line, we're going to have done A, B, C, D. And you think, well, that's a bit unrealistic. I mean, we're talking complex social dynamics. How would we know what's happening? But there's this one thing where I like, there's an approach which says, well, we don't want to be too linear, too mechanical about our thinking. But where they say basically we look at expect to see, like to see, love to see, kind of 3 different categories of expectations. So we think, well, if we get our act together, we expect to see. We really have to be bad in our planning and implementation if that's not happening. But a bit more would already be like to see. We think that's already if we really do well. And then there's kind of the top of the pop, so to speak, where you say, and if everything goes really well, we love to see. And I think here, as you said, it can't be right for everyone. You can't have this that fits for every situation, for everyone, for every limp and sport. But I think if you get it right for 70% of the people in 50% of the situations, with enough flexibility that people, once they get used to how it works in their bodies with their expectation, with their fiddling around, and maybe with a little adjustment on a DIY level, that you say, well, we actually like to see or love to see that another 10% get even more out of it if they make it their device.
Yeah.
Maybe beyond what we were playing around, maybe with additional padding or with, I don't know, another liner cut out stuffed in between or so. And I'm already really excited to hear more about, many of the people you support, and actually testing it, giving feedback and hearing their stories. And it's going to be exciting.
It is, and we really hope like that Revo Surface opportunity is one where people can hone in the design, the functionality, the way that their device is made from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that they're more likely to have a definitive device that really works for them. And that's an exciting proposition.
Yeah. And I think it's also something where, in terms of orthopedic technicians, prosthetists, where I think for them, also in terms of looking at the bottom line, the budget, where they say, here we actually now can find the right balance between playing around more, but not constantly then building a whole new socket just because we thought, oh no, we got that cut out a bit wrong. It should be 5 millimeters more to the left. And I think now convincing prosthetists and letting them know there is something which is rather cheap, which can be reused and reused, I see lots of added advantages there.
Yeah, we call that adjustability.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you're using the end device, which is ultimately adjustable, we want to help practitioners adjust too.
Yeah.
Right? And so much of the world of delivering a prosthesis is so rigid, even in the thinking or the economics. Let's do it. Let's adjust.
Yeah.
Right? Let's find a way to adjust.
Yeah.
And there's so much value and fun and inspiration, innovation right there. So that's what we're trying to create and enable practitioners and patients to experience.
Cool. Jimmy, thank you very much. Just before we're coming to an end, when can people actually learn more about it? When is there a chance to see the first things on the market? That's the first one. And if people want to learn more about your products, your company, what services and products you offer now, and what are some of the things you're working on for the future, where can they find more information about you, your services, your products?
First, the information can be found at our website. We have a little bit of a funny web address, www.clickmedical.co.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the show notes, so if you can't remember, just look it up.
On that site, come March 22nd of this year, so just
a month and a bit,
40 days from now,
we'll
have the launch of all the new products. Those new products will be showcased in two ways. One is really a strong patient-centered or user-centered front page, which really will help users learn quickly about the technology and whether it's right for them. And then they can take that information to their practitioner and tell them more about it. We'll also have the practitioner side of the site, which goes deeper into the mechanics and the details of the product itself. But both are available, and users can really log on and learn quite a bit. I'd also say, and I know this, depending on from where you're listening to this, give Click Medical a call. We talk to people all the time, and we're able to help them learn quickly or help them assess what's right for them. We can even send them pictures and whatnot that they might find useful in bringing to their practitioner. Again, we want to empower people, so those are the places to find the information.
Yeah, just in terms of, okay, if you're not in the US, and you're US based, and I guess, once you're in the same country, you speak the same language, if it's just basically a local course, easier. If people from Europe, from Asia, from, I don't know, the Pacific area or so, would prosthetists, technicians, would they get in contact with you, or do you have distribution points in other continents, other countries? If someone now gets interested, what's the way for the technical person building the socket and saying, yes, I want to give it a try?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of support. So anyone, regardless of what sort of interest level or role they play, can always call Click Medical in the United States. Of course, that would have to be done during certain hours, and it's done in English. That said, the practitioner who you see for your care knows who they buy these products from, and they're all local distributors throughout Europe. So the opportunity to speak to one of those distributors who are quite educated in our products and know a lot about how they're used, that can be an excellent place to start. And if there's still remaining questions, then we can either find them on the website or then contact directly to Click Medical.
Cool. Jimmy, thank you very much. It's been really exciting speaking with you. It's been really exciting seeing these things earlier. I know that doesn't come across on the podcast so well, but maybe we'll run a few pictures on the blog in a couple of days or so.
Sure.
And I'm really excited of soon, hopefully, having the chance to test some of them. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your interest.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new episodes. And I would really appreciate it if you leave me a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to learn more about the Active Amputee, make sure to head over to www.theactiveamputee.org, where you find hundreds of articles from amputees for amputees. Articles filled with inspiration, information, and encouragement to be active and live a rewarding life. I see you all again for the next episode. Until then, all the best. This is Bjorn from The Active Amputee.